I never thought family reunions could end in handcuffs. But that's exactly how mine went down, right after I slipped the forged deed into my brother's pocket and watched his empire crumble over a goddamn steak dinner. The waiter, poor kid with sweat beading on his forehead, dropped that $2,200 bill like it was a live grenade. And, in that split second, every lie we'd buried for 15 years exploded across the table. My father's fork clattered against his plate. My niece choked on her soda. And I just leaned back in my chair, sipping my bourbon neat, knowing I'd finally made them pay for letting me rot in prison for their sins. It started in the sweltering summer of 2010, back when Detroit was still licking its wounds from the crash. And our family, the Harrisons, pretended we were kings of the scrap metal game. Dad ran Harrison Salvage, a sprawling junkyard on the outskirts of the city, turning rusted-out Fords and Chevys into cold, hard cash. I was 25, fresh out of community college with a business degree that felt about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. But I loved the grind, haggling with tow truck drivers at dawn, sorting copper wire under the relentless Michigan sun, dreaming of expanding into recycling tech that could make us legit. Elizabeth Harrison, the golden girl who kept the book straight and the crew in line. That's what they called me. My brother, Tommy, was the wild card. 3 years older, with that cocky grin and a tattoo of a coiled snake up his arm that he swore made him look like a mobster. He handled the acquisitions, buying up foreclosed lots cheap, stripping them for parts before the banks could blink. We were tight. Tommy and me shared a duplex off 8 Mile, split six-packs on Fridays watching Tigers games, covered for each other when Dad's temper flared. Blood's thicker than motor oil, Liz, he'd say, clinking his bottle against mine. I believed him. Hell, I lived it. Then came the deal that changed everything, the old auto plant on Jefferson Avenue. It was a ghost town, chain-link fences sagging like a drunk's posture. But inside, gold mine. Thousands of tons of scrap steel, aluminum engines, even some rare earth magnets from the assembly lines. Dad saw dollar signs. Tommy saw a shortcut to the big leagues. We flipped this quick, Liz. And we're out private jets to Vegas. The works. I crunched the numbers. Permits, hauling fees, EPA regs. It was tight, but doable if we played it straight. Tommy didn't play straight. He cut corners like they were butter. Bribed the city inspector with envelopes of cash, 20 grand. I later found out, falsified manifests to dodge hazardous waste fees. And worst of all, he buried the toxic sludge from the paint vats in a back lot without a whisper to the crew. I caught wind of it one night when a hauler buddy texted me a blurry pic of barrels stamped hazardous, do not disturb. My stomach dropped. Tommy, this is felony territory. We're talking Superfund sites, lawsuits that could bury us. He laughed it off over burgers at Lafayette, Coney Island, grease dripping down his chin. Relax, sis. It's just a little dirt. Who's gonna dig it up? The feds got bigger fish. But I couldn't shake it. I confronted Dad the next morning in his cluttered office, the air thick with cigar smoke and regret. Pa, Tommy's cooking the books on the plant. If this leaks, we're done. Dad's face hardened, those bushy brows knitting like storm clouds. Family first. Elizabeth. Tommy's got vision. You handle the details, make it clean. Make it clean. Like I was the maid sweeping up his son's mess. I should have walked. Packed my shitty Corolla and headed west like every other dreamer fleeing the Rust Belt. But blood. Remember? I forged the signatures on the revised manifests myself, backdated them to look legit, and shredded the originals in the office shredder while Dad pretended to read the paper. It was me who signed the loan docs for the expanded yard. Me who assured the bank we were compliant. Tommy? He was schmoozing investors at strip clubs, flashing wads of our dirty money like it was fool's gold. The raid hit like a Michigan winter, sudden, brutal, no mercy. Dawn. 6 months after the plant deal closed. Black SUVs screeching up the gravel drive. Feds and windbreakers swarming the yard like ants on a picnic. They dragged me out in cuffs, pajamas clinging to my skin, while Tommy slipped out the back in his pickup, heading God knows where. Dad? He stood on the porch, arms crossed, barking at the agents like it was a bad traffic stop. This is a family business. You got no right. They had plenty. The EPA had tipped them off, anonymous whistleblower. They said. Barrels unearthed. Soil samples glowing under lab lights. Charges piled up. Environmental fraud. Falsifying records. Conspiracy to endanger public health. Tommy's name was on half the docs. But the ones that stuck? Mine. Because I'd signed them. See? To make it clean. The prosecutor. A shark named Harlan with a Boston accent that grated like sandpaper. Painted me as the mastermind. Elizabeth Harrison. The meticulous accountant who buried her family's sins in paperwork. My public defender. A harried kid straight out of law school. Advised me to flip. Give up your brother. And maybe you walk with probation. I didn't. Loyalty's a bitch like that. I took the plea. 8 years at Women's Huron Valley. A concrete hellhole outside Ypsilanti, where the guards eyed you like fresh meat, and the nights echoed with screams you pretended were nightmares. Tommy? He turned state's evidence the day after my sentencing. Sang like a canary to shave his own time down to 18 months in a cushy federal camp. Sorry, Liz, he wrote in a letter that arrived 6 weeks later. Postmarked from some podunk Ohio town. Pa said it was every man for himself. Love ya. Dad visited once. Twice maybe. Mumbling about appeals and holding the fort. By year 3, the letter stopped. Harrison Salvage? Sold off in bankruptcy. The yard paved over for a Walmart that never got built. Prison chews you up slow. I learned to spot the snakes, the inmates with honeyed words and hidden shivs, the COs who traded favors for silence. I got my associates in paralegal studies through a program that smelled like pity. Spent nights poring over case law, tracing the threads of my betrayal back to that greasy Coney dog. Tommy had played us all. Dad's denial. My loyalty. Even the feds with his half-truths. He'd pocketed kickbacks from a rival outfit in Toledo. Funneled them through offshore accounts I'd unknowingly balanced. The plant wasn't just a flip, it was his exit scam. And I was the fall guy holding the bag. Parole came in 2018, a gray-haired ghost slipping back into a Detroit that had half rebuilt itself without me. The duplex was gone. Condemned after a pipe burst. Dad had downsized to a bungalow in the burbs, nursing a bad hip and a worse conscience. Tommy? He'd clawed his way up, rebranded as Thomas Harrison Investments, flipping foreclosures in the booming suburbs. Clean suits, TEDx talks on resilient entrepreneurship, a McMansion in Bloomfield Hills with a pool that shimmered like stolen dreams. He'd married some Pilates instructor named Kendra. Popped out a kid, my niece, Sophie. All pigtails and gap-toothed smiles in the Christmas cards that arrived like taunts. I crashed on a cousin's couch, waitressed at a dive bar off Woodward, scraping tips from drunks who mistook my silence for invitation. But I planned.
Oh,
I planned. Nights hunched over a library computer, digging through public records, LinkedIn profiles, whispers from old yard hands who'd kept loose tabs. Tommy's empire was built on sand, shell companies laundering the old scrap money, backroom deals with city councilmen who'd forgotten ethics class.
the twist?
Dad knew. Letters I'd missed in the shuffle, post-prison haze, showed him wiring funds to Tommy's accounts, covering tracks even as he let me fester. Protect the name, one read. The Harrison name. Not me. Revenge isn't a lightning bolt, it's termites in the foundation. I started small. Anonymous tips to the IRS about unreported income. Discrepancies in Tommy's tax filings that I'd memorized like scripture. Nothing stuck. His lawyers were sharks with JDS from Ivy Leagues, but it itched. Then Sophie turned 13, and the annual family summit invite arrived, embossed on cardstock thick as gilt. This table is for family, the crest read, a bullshit motto from Dad's glory days. Dinner at the Forge, that overpriced chop house in Royal Oak where power brokers cut deals over dry-aged ribeyes. $200 plates. They bragged. I RSVP'd yes. My first in years. Kendra's email pinged back. Thrilled to have you. Liz. Sophie's been asking about Aunt Eli. Thrilled.
Right.
I spent my tips on a thrift store pantsuit, practiced my smile in the cracked mirror till it didn't scream fraud. The plan crystallized over a stolen six-pack, exposed them at the table, where the facade was thickest. I'd hacked Tommy's email months back, phishing link disguised as a real estate alert. Child's play for a paralegal with grudges. Buried in attachments, the forged deed to the old plant lot, now reclaimed as premium real estate. He'd sold it to developers, buried the toxins deeper under condos that fetched 7 figures. But the manifests still carried my signature, scanned and filed away like a noose. I altered it. Midnight Photoshop in the cousin's basement, swapping my loops for Tommy's scrawl, close enough to fool a glance. Damning under scrutiny. Printed on watermarked paper. Tucked into an envelope marked confidential for Thomas Harrison. The real bomb? A USB drive with the originals. The bribes. Dad's wires. I'd mail it to the DA post-dinner. Time to hit Harlan's desk by morning. Let the feds unravel it while I watch the family implode over dessert. The Forge was everything I hated about resurgent Detroit. Exposed brick. Edison bulbs swinging like pendulums. Waitstaff in vests that screamed artisanal. We gathered at a corner booth. The kind reserved for whispers and backstabs. Dad arrived first. Leaning on a cane carved from reclaimed oak, irony much, his face a roadmap of regrets softened by denial. Elizabeth, you look healthy. Translation, skinny, haunted. But hey, free labor. Tommy swept in next, Kendra on his arm like a trophy, Sophie trailing with a phone glued to her palm. Aunt Eli, she squealed, hugging me stiffly, all braces and awkward limbs. Tommy clapped my shoulder too hard. Sis, been too long. Place looks good on you. Lies hung in the air like cigar smoke as we ordered, fillets for the men, salads for the women. Kendra's doing that step forward chirp, insisting on balance. Conversation skimmed the surface. Sophie's volleyball team. Tommy's latest flip in Ferndale. Dad's gripes about Biden's green energy push killing real jobs. I nodded.
Smiled.
Played the reformed con along. Under the table. My foot tapped Morse code. Soon. The food arrived in waves, seared scallops that tasted like ash. Creamed spinach I pushed around my plate. Tommy dominated, regaling us with tales of ethical investing, his snake tattoo peeking from his cuff like a warning. Then the waiter, gangly kid, maybe 20, with a name tag reading Jamal, approached, tray balanced like a tightrope. "Your bill, sir." He slid it toward Tommy, but I intercepted, my fingers brushing the leather folder. "Family tab," I said, voice steady as rebar. Tommy waved it off. "On me."
Liz.
Water under the bridge. I flipped it open anyway, eyes scanning the total, $2,200 even. Itemized down to the corkage fee on Dad's smuggled scotch. But tucked inside, folded crisp, was my envelope. I'd paid the maitre d' $50 to slip it in. Small-town graft never dies. Tommy snatched it, brow furrowing. "What's this?" He tore it open, the deed unfurling like a serpent. His face drained of color, that cocky grin twisting into something feral. "Elizabeth." "What the fuck?" Dad leaned over, squinting through bifocals. "Thomas." Language, but his voice cracked, eyes darting to me like I'd grown horns. Kendra froze, fork midway to her gloss lips. Sophie whispered, "Uncle Tommy," oblivious to the storm. I leaned forward, bourbon warm in my veins. "Read it, brother. That's your signature on the manifests."
The bribes.
"The barrels you buried while I signed my life away." Tommy's laugh was a bark, forced and hollow. "This is bullshit. You forged this, parole desperation."
Huh.
Pathetic. But his eyes flicked to Dad, a silent SOS. Dad cleared his throat, cane tapping the floor like a gavel. "Elizabeth."
Enough.
"We've moved on. Let sleeping dogs."
Dogs.
I cut in, voice slicing the din like a bandsaw. Heads turned from nearby tables, suits pausing mid-deal, a bachelorette party gaping. "You let me rot for your vision, Pa." 8 years counting cans in that hellhole while Tommy built his castle on my bones. "And you wired the hush money, didn't you? Every month. Like clockwork." Dad's face crumpled. "A dam breaking." "I had to protect the family." "You were strong."
Liz.
"Tougher than us." Sophie whimpered, tears streaking her mascara. "Aunt Eli." "Stop. This is crazy." Kendra clutched her husband's arm, whispering furious nothings. Tommy crumpled the deed, shoving it back. "You think this sticks? My lawyers will bury you again." But doubt cracked his voice, the snake coiling inward. Jamal hovered, awkward in the crossfire. Everything okay?" I slid the folder back. $2,200 untouched.
Perfect.
Families picking up the tab. As Tommy fumbled for his Amex, I slipped the USB into Sophie's palm under the table. Innocent eyes. "Perfect courier. For your college fund."
Kiddo.
"Mail it tomorrow. Address is inside." She nodded, confused but trusting. The only pure thing in this farce. The valet fetched our cars in a blur of accusations, Tommy hissing threats, Dad pleading for one more chance, Kendra herding Sophie away like a shield. I drove my beater Civic into the rain-slick night, radio crackling with some classic rock dirge about bad moons rising. By dawn, my phone buzzed, Harlan's number, voice gravelly with triumph. "Harrison, got a package that smells like vindication. You coming in a chat?" I didn't sleep that night. Curled on the cousin's lumpy futon, rain hammering the roof like federal agents' fists. I replayed the dinner in loops. Tommy's pallor, Dad's wheeze, Sophie's wide-eyed betrayal. It should have felt like victory, that first crack in their armor. But revenge is a hollow high, fizzing out like cheap champagne. By morning, the news hit. Prominent investor Thomas Harrison faces scrutiny in environmental probe. A tipster, anonymous, Natch, had leaked the basics to the free press. Stock in his flips dipped 3%. Enough to sting but not bleed. Harlan called again at noon. His Boston clip clipped shorter by excitement. Deeds of beauty. Elizabeth. Forgeries match the originals to a T. Your brother's sweating. Wants a meet. I met him at a Tim Hortons off I-75. The kind of place where cops grab glazed and suspects spill guts over weak coffee. Harlan was grayer. Pauncher. But those eyes still sharked. You flipped the script good, he said, stirring in creamer like it was evidence. But this? It's bigger than '08. Those condos on the old plant? Sold to families.
Liz.
Kids playing in yards laced with cadmium. If it sticks, Tommy's looking at 20.
Easy.
Dad, too. For the accessories. Accessories. Like I hadn't been theirs. We talked angles. Immunity for my testimony. Restitution from the asset freeze. You walk clean, Harlan promised. Build something new.
Clean.
The word mocked me as I signed the affidavit, my pen scratching like claws on concrete. But walking away? That was the lie. Family doesn't dissolve with indictments. It festers.
Daps.
Strikes back. Tommy called that afternoon, voice oily as ever. Liz, we gotta talk. For Sophie's sake. Kendra's line next. All faux concern. This is tearing us apart. Come to the house, dinner. Like old times. Old times. The duplex.
6-packs.
Loyalty. I agreed. Wired tight as a trip line. The McMansion loomed in Bloomfield like a bad joke, columns fake as Tommy's smile. Lawn manicured to golf green perfection. Sophie answered the door. USB gone from her pocket. Face smudged with worry. Aunt Eli. Uncle Tommy's yelling a lot. Is it true what you said? I ruffled her hair. Throat tight. Truth's messy.
Kid. But yeah.
Inside. The air reeked of vanilla candles, masking panic. Kendra poured Rose in the kitchen, eyes red-rimmed, while Dad nursed a highball in the den, cane propped like a crutch. Tommy paced the marble island, sleeves rolled, snake tattoo flexing. You bitch, he spat, low enough for Sophie not to hear. That deed? Amateur hour. My guy's already spinning it, sister's grudge. Post-prison delusion. Delusion. I sipped the wine, tart on my tongue. Spin all you want. The wires are in black and white. Tommy. Dad's account to yours. Every month I was inside. Protect the name. Whose name?
Pa?
Not mine. Dad shifted. Glass clinking. Elizabeth.
I.
We were scared. The business was crumbling. Tommy promised it'd blow over. Tommy whirled on him. Don't you dare. Old man. You cash the check same as me. Kendra interjected. Voice quaver. This isn't us. We're family. What about Sophie? CPS sniffing around because of your stunt. Stunt. Like I'd TP'd their mailbox. Sophie wandered in then, clutching a sketchpad, doodles of junkyard forts, relics of stories I'd spun during rare visits. Aunt Eli. Draw with me? Like when you showed me the cranes?
Cranes.
The ones that hoisted engines like toys. Before the feds chained them down. We retreated to the sunroom. Colored pencils scattering like shrapnel. She sketched a family picnic. All smiles and checkered blankets. Why's everyone mad? I traced a river beside her basket. Voice soft. Sometimes grown-ups hide bad stuff.
Soft. To keep the picnic going.
But it catches up. Her eyes. Tommy's eyes. Search mine. You hate them?
Hate.
Too small a word. I love them enough to make it right. Dinner was a minefield. Grilled salmon Kendra overcooked to rubber. Quinoa salad nobody touched. Tommy dominated again. But cracked, jabs at my bar gig, digs at prison tats I'd inked in a fit of spite. Dad stayed mute, forking flakes like they held answers. Halfway through, his phone buzzed, lawyer. No doubt. He excused himself, returning ashen. The DA's subpoenaing records. Full audit. Tommy's fork bent in his grip. This is you.
Liz.
Pure spite.
Spite?
I set my napkin down. Deliberate. 8 years.
Tommy.
You testified against me. Elizabeth orchestrated it all. Remember? I have the transcript. Highlighted. He lunged, but Kendra's hand on his arm yanked him back. Sophie fled to her room, sobs echoing down the hall. Dad slammed his fist. Cain forgotten. Enough. Elizabeth. You want blood? Take the business, what's left.
Just.
Stop. The business. Scraps of Harrison salvage. Mothballed in a storage unit. Too late.
Pa.
It's not about money, but it was, in the end. Not dollars, but the debt they owed in years. In freedom. I left them to their wreckage. Rain sheeting the windshield as I merged onto Telegraph Road. Harlan texted, "Presser tomorrow." You lead. I didn't. Let the vultures circle. The next week's blurred, headlines screaming, Rust Belt royalty falls, protesters picketing Tommy's office with signs decrying toxic legacies. He lawyered up hard, big firm from Chicago. Motions flying like confetti. Dad suffered a mild stroke, hospitalized in Farmington, mumbling apologies through slurred speech. Kendra filed for separation, citing irreconcilable betrayals, Sophie shuttling between homes like baggage.
Me?
I moved into a studio in Midtown, parlayed my tips into night classes at Wayne State, environmental law, irony's sharpest blade. Old crew reached out, haulers buying me beers at the Pony Lounge, toasting the Queen's return. Whispers of a class action suit from the condo buyers. Toxins seeping into wells. Harlan pushed for a deal. Tommy pleads to fraud. 5 years, Dad community service. Your call. Elizabeth. My call. I met Tommy one last time. Neutral ground, a park bench overlooking the Detroit River. Freighters churning past like ghosts. He looked hollowed. Suit rumpled. Snake tattoo faded under sun. Liz. Please. Sophie's asking for you. Says you're the only one who tells stories straight. Stories. The ones I'd woven to shield him. Now unraveling us all. Straight? I echoed. Wind whipping my hair. You buried poison.
Tommy.
Let kids play on it. I took the fall so you could play tycoon. He rubbed his face. Stubble rasping. I was young. Scared. Pa pushed, said you'd handle it. Like always.
Pa.
The puppeteer.
Strings cut by his own hand. And now, developers suing. Feds circling. You win.
Sis.
Happy.
Happy.
A foreign country. Not about winning. About owing. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Checks. Restitution drafts.
Take it.
Start over. I took it, but not for the ink. Tucked inside, a key to the storage unit. Harrison's salvage remnants. Fix it, he said. The yard. Make it clean.
Clean.
The word again, looping like a curse. I drove to the unit that night, padlock clicking open under sodium lights. Crates of tools, rusted ledgers, a faded sign. Harrison Salvage, family owned since '72. Dust motes danced as I pried open a footlocker, my old notebook, margins crammed with figures from the plant deal. Flipped to the last page, Tommy's handwriting. Scrawled in haste, Liz, I'm sorry. Pa made me. Burn this. Made him. The lie that bound us. I didn't burn it. Instead, I called Harlan at dawn. No deal. Full trial. Let the courts carve it out. Truth by scalpel. Tommy's arraignment aired live, cuffs glinting under courtroom lights. Kendra absent. Sophie watching from the back row with a social worker's hand on her shoulder. Dad testified. Voice frail. My son. We all aired. Elizabeth most loyal. Loyal. The prosecution star.
Me.
Took the stand in a borrowed blazer, recounting the raid, the cell block nights, the letters that never came. Jurors leaned in, faces a jury of my peers, blue collar, scarred by the same crash that birthed our sins. Closing arguments dragged into summer, heat wave turning the gallery into a sauna. Harlan thundered, betrayal isn't just personal, it's poison in the water we drink. Tommy's counsel countered, a sister's vendetta, twisting family bonds into nooses. Vendetta. The word stung, but fit. Sophie slipped me a note during recess. Believe in second chances? Love. Sophomore. Second chances.
For who?
Verdict day broke humid. Skies bruised over Wayne County Courthouse. I waited in the hall. Vending machine coffee cooling in styrofoam. Old haulers flanking me like sentinels. Big Mike with his missing tooth. Rosie who'd run the scale back in '08. Proud of ya, Liz, Mike grunted, clapping my back.
Proud.
Felt like pity dressed up. Inside, the jury filed in, faces unreadable as welded steel. 4 women. A nurse with calloused hands cleared her throat. On count 1. Environmental endangerment. Guilty. Gasps rippled. Kendra sobbed from the gallery. Tommy's head dropping like a felled oak.
Dad. Accessory. Guilty.
5 years probation. Fines that'd strip his bungalow bare. Tommy, 15. No parole sweethearts this time. Federal pen in Terre Haute, the kind without golf. As marshals led him away, he twisted for one last look, eyes locking mine. Not hate, but something worse, recognition. Liz, a whisper, swallowed by the gavel. The press swarmed post-trial, mics thrusting like bayonets. MS. Harrison. Was it worth it? Family destroyed. A reporter from Channel 4. Peroxide blonde with a predatory smile. Worth it? I faced the lenses. Voice steady. Family's what you build after the scraps cleared. Flashbulbs popped. Then silence as I walked free. No cuffs. No appeals pending. Harlan slapped my shoulder outside. You got restitution incoming.
millions from the condos. Buy back the yard. Make it right.
Right.
The word haunted as I drove to the hospital. Dad's room a sterile cage of beeps and wilted flowers. He looked small in the bed, tubes snaking like accusations. Elizabeth, he rasped, hand trembling toward mine. Forgive. Forgive. The ultimate corner cut. I sat, the envelope from Tommy crinkling in my pocket. You chose the name over me.
Pa.
Every wire, every silence. His eyes welled, tears carving tracks in the stubble. I was wrong.
Thought.
Blood would hold. It didn't. But as Monitor's word, I squeezed his hand.
Rest.
We'll talk when you're out. Sophie waited in the lobby, knees drawn up, sketchpad clutched like armor. They took him.
Aunt Eli.
Mom's packing, says we're moving to her sister's in Chicago. Chicago. Away from the river. The yard.
Us.
I knelt, level with her hurt. You okay? She shrugged, pencil tracing a jagged line. Miss the stories. The good ones. Good ones. The forts. The cranes, not the poison.
Come by the yard sometime.
I'll show you the real ones. Cranes still stand. Kid. She nodded. Hug fierce and fleeting. Kendra collected her that afternoon. Eyes averted. A curt thanks that tasted like ash. The McMansion sold quick, fire sale to a tech bro from Austin. Pool drained like tears. Dad, rehab slow. Moved into assisted living off Orchard Lake. Letters resuming. Rambling apologies. Clippings of my heroes' interviews. I didn't reply, but I visited Sundays, bringing contraband cigars he puffed in the garden, talking baseball like the trial was a bad inning. The yard? I bought it back with the first restitution check, $1.2 million after fees. Enough to resurrect Harrison Salvage as something clean. Green Salvage. I rebranded. Solar panels on the fences. Recycling rigs that scrub toxins from the soil. Hired the old crew. Plus new blood, ex-cons with second chances. Kids from Cass Tech learning the trade. Big Mike ran ops. Rosie the books.
Me,
CEO. Sleeves rolled. Snake of a tattoo inked fresh on my forearm, not Tommy's, but mine. A phoenix rising from coils. Reminder that ashes build better.
But the twist?
It came 6 months post-verdict. A manila envelope postmarked Terre Haute. Tommy's handwriting. Shaky on the return address. Inside, a single page. Notarized. Liz, power of attorney. Sign over the yard to Sophie. Trust for her 18th. It's hers.
Clean.
No apology. No grovel, just the deed. Echoes of the one-eyed forged. And a P.S. Pa confessed before the stroke. The bribes? His idea. I followed. Blood's thicker. Fix it for her. His idea. Dad's masterstroke. Puppeteering us both into the pit. I sat in the office, my old desk, polished now, staring at the river beyond the chain link. Fix it. For Sophie, who called weekly, voice brighter in Chicago. Aunt Eli, draw me a crane. I signed, trust irrevocable. The yard would be hers. Legacy scrubbed of sludge. Was it justice? Reporters still hounded. Podcasts debating the Harrison vendetta, hero or villain? Online forums split. Liz got hers, family's poison anyway. Versus. Broke M for spite. Blood don't lie. Harlan bought me dinner at the Forge 1 anniversary, same booth. $2,200 billed to his expense account. You divided the room that night, he chuckled, raising his bourbon. Still do. Divided. That's the rub. No one's clean. Not me. With my forged revenge, Tommy. Chained by greed, Dad. Buried in denial. Sophie? She'll inherit the bones. Decide what to build.
Me?
I walk the yard at dusk. Cranes groaning like old sins, wondering if the hook ever lets go. Family's a table for all, shocks included. And the bill always comes due. But damn if it doesn't make one hell of a story.